boy, fire 'em up! We go live and fire. It's time for ignition and straight up automobile pimping. Drop, too fast, drop, too furious. I'm too fast for y'all, man. Drop, too fast, drop, too furious. Oh, I'm too fast for y'all, man. Drop, too fast, drop, too furious. I'm too fast for y'all, man. Drop, too fast, drop, too furious. Oh, I'm too fast for y'all, man.
Hello there everyone, and this is Kyle from Twisted Modworks, and today we're going over a fully or mostly 3D printed blaster that you can print yourself on thingiverse. So, here we go. And this is it. This is the Sklep MK1. That is Sklep MK1. And this is a pretty fun, gimmicky 3D printed blaster. Now, I say gimmicky, but as you will see, we load in shells. These are 3D printed shells. You kind of slot them in there, prime forward, fire if they were loaded, and when you prime the slide again, we eject the shell. Shell ejecting single shot blasters are a little odd in our hobby, not necessarily highly sought after for performance-based play, but can always add a nice, fun, plinking gimmick to any nerfing session, battle, depending on what you guys actually like to do. So to fire the Sklep, you would prime back, insert a shell, you hear a click, that is this ejector latching into the catch, push that back forward, you're going to go ahead and fire, thought I could catch that, and then you would go ahead and reprime to eject your shell. Pretty easy to go ahead, load, and fire. The printing of this blaster is a little bit difficult, and I just want to talk about it for just a second because I don't want to give too much on the topic. The files for this blaster are very, very clear. You have a PDF of instructions, you will need those, and you have obviously all the pieces to go ahead and make this. The only thing in addition you will need is a string and your Nerf screws, which if you tinker like I do, you probably have a few. You will need them to put this blaster together. However, there's a few things that I wish were a little different. There is no kind of spring or anything to hold the catch for the trigger. Once you pull it back, it is obviously stiff. You release and it kind of just flops around here. That's not really that big of a deal, but just, you know, with 3D printed blasters, not a lot that you can do to do that. As well as the ejecting mechanism requires two springs, one here and one here. What those springs do is operate the shell ejecting mechanism. You can see as I push that down, and when I prime it back, again, this catch release right here releases the ejector and removes the shell. In doing that, that just gives a little bit extra difficulty on assembly. The tolerance for these parts is pretty good in the end. If you would look, my handle is just slightly offset to the rest of the blaster, and there's really no good reason for that. All these were printed on a perfectly flat and level bed, no heat soaking. And I mean, it's always a possibility that they warped, but it seems to be consistent through other areas of this blaster. The pieces that you will need to probably pay more attention to while printing is these. This is the frame left and frame right piece. Now, obviously, every part of a 3D printed blaster is important, but that is just the one thing that I would think you would need to print at 100% infill, as you will be screwing into that, and that has all of the clamping force of the little springs and the pusher rides inside of it on this top slide. With that being said, the gimmicky Sklep, that's kind of what I'm going with here. It is a really cool, fun thing. Ejecting shells always is and always will be really fun. And who doesn't love just, having the satisfaction of that shell just coming flying out? It is pretty cool. So now I'm going to go ahead and actually chrono this thing. Just as a disclaimer, your FPS will vary on your string. This is as tight as I could get this this paracord elastic string to go with actually being able to prime the blaster without putting too much weight. That is the only other thing that I have a problem with this blaster. If you want to put a bigger string on it, you can see there's a lot of slack here. You will start to over prime this blaster, and in doing so can always result in the slide coming off of the rail. Hopefully I'll be able to get it to do it kind of like so. You can see that this is the rail that this is supposed to be on. You can see by just priming on the back, you can lift that up. Obviously that is super easy to fix. You kind of just push the slide back forward, or you can continue to pull back and get it back in the groove. But that's just one thing to note. Any tougher of a spring and I would start to think you'd start having issues like that. Now to the firing. Again, this is just a little intuitive. You got to get a shell, load, push the slide forward. You can see the dart is now in the ramp and or slide. String is caught. The shell is kind of just there for the ejecting gimmick, but here we go. 61.5, 59.7, 64, and 59.8 feet per second. As you can see, the feet per second is not the best, but that's kind of just what you expect with a stringer style blaster that has a little bit of a gimmicky kind of thing. For a direct comparison, we have our Sklep MK1 and we have the single one here as well. Now, obviously, the size difference is kind of crazy. Again, this is more comfortable in the hand, more handle, has a nice kind of full knuckle guard, trigger well, all the good things. But it's difficult to really compare the two. They do different things. With the single, you load, you have a shell, you fire, you eject a shell. You have to have these shells for your gimmick to work. To be very clear, you can take a single dart and load it into this ramp and push forward and go ahead and fire, but what's the point? Back to the single. Way simpler design, simple prime, forward, release. String is a little tighter just because this rides in 3 grooves. Top, middle, and bottom. This has 3 different attachments, slides, to get this to not come off. As the Sklep does not have that multi-point of contact. And just from basic play, say about over a week now, I am grinding this string, as you can see, more and more and more, so it just comes loose. The single is a little bit easier with this hole. You can kind of get your knot caught in there. With the Sklep, it kind of seems like there was a better way to do this. who doesn't love having to repair their blaster mid-review? Anyway, that's just kind of one of those things that you expect with a 3D printed stringer blaster. When you have to tie the string, there's no real good way to anchor it or kind of pin it down. I always recommend using a lighter, just melt those frayed ends, which is what I just did to try and see if I could get this to last longer. I also tried to pull it a little bit tighter. You can see that is harder for me to prime. And we're just going to give it one shot, and then I will give my final opinion. 57 feet per second. No difference. So I'll leave you with my final words on the Sklep. As a project to go ahead and put together, there's a reason you guys did not see the whole thing. This is a task. Yes, the screw ports are built in, but they are so close to the surface that you could see just a tiny, tiny Nerf screw, and you are almost bursting them through the surface of the print. Maybe that's just an issue with mine. It seemed to happen on every single screw hole. I did have to re-drill this top slide to be able to get the different shell pieces to actually meet perfectly, because they just want to separate. Again, I have a very nice heated and cooled environment for my printers. They run almost non-stop during the day with no issues whatsoever. These prints failed 5-6 times. This probably took almost 2 weeks to get all the pieces to actually print right, wasting half spools and full spools of filament to try and get this to work. Do I recommend you go ahead and print one of these if you have the ability? If you want to take on the task, please go right ahead. If you like to tinker, it's kind of a fun thing to do. You're not going to be using this in a performance-based environment. And as far as blinking goes, I mean, yeah, it has the shell ejecting feature, but once you start tightening that string, it kind of doesn't do it anymore, because you need a full release on that slide to get that catch to release. If you want to go ahead and print one of these, the Thingiverse file link is in the description box below. Now, just a quick little side note. Any issues that I had with this, I will always blame my own printers. I will never just say the design is not a good design. I know my printers are more than capable of printing these pieces just like it did with these side shells and top with no issues. I have printed way bigger objects at 100% infill and not had any heat soak up through my prints. Now, it is cold here, so it is always a possibility, which is why I don't blame designs. With that being said though, obviously something went wrong here, and I will always just blame my own stuff because it's a lot easier to do that, but I know I've heard of people having similar issues, and once you start putting more stress on these, they just don't hold up. So your mileage may vary. Thank you very much, everyone. That is the Sklep. Again, link in the description if you feel like going ahead and printing one of those on your own. They are pretty fun, they are pretty cool, but just keep everything in mind. It is not going to be something that you will just be able to use in a performance-based arena. But with that being said, again, thank you guys very much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe if you're not. We are trying to regrow this channel, and every little piece helps. But thank you guys again very much for watching. My link to my Instagram is now in my bio. On there, you will be able to see a little bit of updates. I'm trying to kind of get back on that social as well. So, again, like I said, thank you guys very much for watching, and as always, peace out, bros. Simple operation demo. And a quick firing demo.